Hello humans! Today I wanted to talk about this right here. I recently picked it up from my local hunting supply store. This is a USA made buck folding knife. As we can see, it is an actual proper USA made knife. You have their famous forever warranty, the goddamn forsaken Proposition 65 warning. Don't stab people with knives, don't give knives to people who are under whatever your age of majority is. Yeah. Basically, don't commit crimes with their knives, and if you do, we are not liable, which totally fair enough. We have the Buck Pursuit Small Folding, cost me 110 Canadian bucks. Yep. Yeah. Which is slightly above what I consider to be budget. It is entering, like, at the low end of what I consider to be mid-range. The knife itself is made in the US, and the sheath is imported, apparently. Now let's open this up. So inside of the box, very easy to recycle, just pure cardboard. So burn it, do whatever you want. I really like that. Like I always say it every time it comes up because I really do feel passionately about it. Just give me a cardboard box. Give me, like, you can see there's no extra plastic around the sheath. Perfect. Right? I can burn the cardboard. I can use it to make a little fire, or I can recycle it. It's just super nice. We have our message from the Buck family, yada, yada, yada. And the warranty, which, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Any defects of workmanship, totally fair. And then here we have our little nylon sheath. Looks a little bit tight for, actually, this is MOLLE compatible. This might actually just be fully MOLLE compatible too, which is pretty cool. Looks a little bit tight for my belt, but I'm sure it'll fit. And definitely still needs some breaking into, but, you know, it will work. Drain hole, though, on a nylon sheath. That's pretty cool. You don't always see them on nylon sheaths because nylon kind of just lets crap drain on its own, but it doesn't do it greatly. So that is really, really nice. I always like having a drainage hole to keep moisture off the blade if I am working in the rain or if I'm on a hike in a wet environment, whatever I happen to be. That's pretty nice. And I'm not quite done with the sheath yet either. There's these, like, some of the aesthetic flares on this are just unnecessary but really cool. You can see these little embossed areas in this detail going through the front. Like, these are nice little additions. They're not necessary, but they are pretty damn cool. Alright, other than that, it's just a regular little snap. Holds its shape fairly okay. There you have it. Alright. Now, for the knife itself. So this is the Small Pursuit with the thumb studs instead of the nail nick. I preferred it. They had the option. I was absolutely going to do that. Oh, yeah. Right out of the box, this handle is... I don't know how to describe this feeling. It is quite nice, though. The only thing I will say is when you squeeze down on it, it does pinch a little bit, which isn't the nicest feeling in the world. But, like, I'm not noticing any sharp spots or anything like that. You have these two very, very deep finger grooves, so if your fingers are any thicker than mine, like, even mine are kind of pushing it, but if your fingers are any thicker than mine, they'll be a little bit cramped in here in the small version at the very least. Does this not have steel liners? I don't think this has liners in it, which might be part of the reason that's making this so, because if I, like, actually bear down and squeeze, there's an actual pinch point in the middle, which isn't, that ain't great. I actually quite dislike that. No pocket clip, which is why it comes with the sheath, but we do have a very slim lanyard area in the back. And then we have a mixture of, like, this pure plastic, injection mold plastic, and then this slightly rubberized plastic, which is pretty cool. We have our official number designation, the 661 Pursuit Small. Very, very, like, lots of aesthetic flair on this, which I quite like. And then, oh, that's nice. Hold up. I might be able to work in, yeah. Again, I like backlocks that I can fidget with a little bit. That took some risk, but this is brand stinking new, so that it will wear in abso-friggin-lutely. But, oh man, that is it's a very, very hydraulic and smooth feeling backlock. There's that typical backlockiness right there. But then once you get past that, it feels really nice. We have what appears to be a slight recurve section, and then into a standard drop point. We have jimping a little bit down the blade just to give you a little bit of that extra force when you're doing some push, which is a pretty good call. I mean, this is not a very large knife. Like I said, this is the small variant. But let's see what the edge is like out of the box. So this is my badly abused piece of paper. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's better than a lot. Actually, I'm trying to think. Because the most recent buck knife, US made buck knife that I picked up was the, that's their skeletonized guy, right? What is it? It's gonna bug me forever now. I feel like it's the 701 or something along those lines. If I'm wrong, it's on the screen. But they're recent skeletonized knives, right? And it's nice, but it did not feel like this out of the box. Like, this is actually exceptional out of the box. And the most recent USA buck folder that I had was the 722 Spitfire, and that just has a thicker geometry. It wasn't gonna feel like that, but that's actually really nice. These thumb studs are pretty approachable. It's very much a barrel, a little bit of stepping down from the top, but oh wow, that is, I'm not gonna get that like that. It does take a little bit. I'm gonna have to get used to flicking this one here in particular, but that's pretty nice. The edge definitely feels ready to be put to work, and completely genuinely, if the only spot that I'm really noticing is that little bit of pinching. I do wish that it had like some steel liners in there just to add a little bit of extra rigidity to it, but it is pretty damn nice, and aesthetically it has a lot of flares that I do quite enjoy. Yeah, that's gonna take a bit, but I'm gonna spend some time with this. I'm gonna give it a feel. Having no pocket clip and going to a pocket sheath is going to be interesting for my primary folding knife, but, you know, we will see how I feel about it, and I will be back in a little bit. And we are back. So I've been playing with this guy for a couple weeks now, and I'm left with a very, very mixed set of opinions on it. And so, first and foremost, it is fairly comfortable. It's a very prescriptive grip. Like, I was actually surprised by how prescriptive I found this grip. Some combination of just having those two locked in right here, essentially, made it very difficult. Like, this is uncomfortable. Very difficult to use any other grips other than just sort of your standard, you know, grip, which I get why they do it. It does make, you know, your standard grip in theory more comfortable. I am absolutely locked in right here, but there's enough other things going on with this grip that it feels like a mute point anyways. I'm going to continue just sort of going around with the features, I guess, before I get into why I don't like this grip very much. Having the jimp so far up on the blade is actually a pretty good thing. The only downside is that I feel like it's a little bit too far, just because of the fact that, like, I can't change my grip on this. So in order to reach this far up the blade, I'm either choking up, which I'm on the blade doing that, and I don't want to be doing any hard cuts when I'm on the blade, or I'm like really, really far extending in order to make that, which is not ideal. If I'm holding it like this, which is kind of the only other grip that you really can do, then I can actually use this jimping to index my index finger off of, which, if you're skinning something like that, I understand that a lot more. Other than that, there's a lot of interesting textural changes that, for me personally, I do not like having mixed textures on anything. I find this to be sensatory hell, but it's not as bad as other things are. I don't like it, but it's not as bad as other things are, just because they both feel kind of like hard plastic. This is like a slightly rubberized hard plastic, but it's not tacky or anything, so it's not as bad as it could have been. Lanyard loop at the back, which, sure, fine, whatever. You've got some more jimps back here, which I guess are for your pinky finger, but, like, honestly, kind of why. They're not bad, they're just sort of there. You have this really bizarre, like, I can't tell if this is a QC issue, where the back lock is slightly above the handle, but back here, that is 110% intentional, and the only thing I can assume, because the only part of the spine that is even remotely crisp is right back here, so I have to assume it's for striking a fire steel. Like, I don't have any other... I cannot explain why that would be sharpened other than that. But, you know what? Fair enough. It's not... I don't notice it in my hand, so it's not like the end of my world. The number one most fucking awful thing about this entire godforsaken knife, and the reason why, like, I didn't... Every time I carried this, I had to make myself carry it. It wasn't like a natural, ooh, this is on top of the pile, let's grab this. It was like yes, I need more notes. So I'd grab it. The amount of times where I'm going to do something and I squeeze down and it fucking cuts into my... Like, hold up, I'm going to give this a good squeeze. You can see the lines it is leaving in my fucking fingers. It is the most godforsaken, uncomfortable fucking experience with a folding knife when it fucking clamps down on your fingers. And then because, of course, you know, the inside edge of this plastic is fairly sharp, it's like noticeably cutting into me. It's fucking unpleasant. And yeah, whatever, soft hands, yada, yada, yada. Fine, I can understand that fucking point. But unless you're wearing gloves 24/7, even if you are wearing gloves 24/7, it's going to pinch your gloves. You want things to be comfortable for long periods of use. I don't care if you can handle it. I can fucking handle this. I use this for many days now. You can fucking handle it. But I don't want to. I find it unpleasant and uncomfortable. And just that fact alone means I am more likely to pick up anything else in my collection over this, because I find this damn thing uncomfortable. Blade itself is actually pretty nice. Like, it held an edge just fine. Having this little bit of recurve, it worked fairly well for feather sticking, stuff like that. Like, any work that I actually put this knife to, it handled it very well. Thumb studs, being a backlock, it is still fairly easy to flub the opening, but it's not the hardest thing in the world either. You know, it's on par with other thumb stud backlocks, in my opinion. Right? And slow roll obviously is just really nice. Like, that's perfectly pleasant experience. Nothing against that. Not having a pocket clip is kind of annoying because you have to get into a sheath each time, or you just drop it in the bottom of your pocket. I have other knives that are like that, and I don't hate it. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, hell, our best friend, the Buck 110, is the same way, right? Like, it is not world-ending, but it is, you know, slightly inconvenient for a knife that feels this modern. Now, here's my number one biggest gripe about this particular knife. Here it is next to the Buck 722 Spitfire. They have the same blade steel, which is, you know, 420 HC. They have extremely similar blade lengths. This small Pursuit, in theory, has about a 1/4 inch more blade length. I'm assuming they're going to the choil because in terms of, like, metal past the handle, it's the same. The handle is actually a little bit shorter. Overall length, they're pretty well identical. They're both backlocks. This is infinitely more convenient, in my opinion. It is infinitely more comfortable to use. This blade shape is so much easier to manage and to deal with, right? Like, straight sack, no recurve means you don't need to deal with sharpening a recurve. This is the better knife, in my opinion. Having a pocket clip alone just makes this so much more practical of a knife. And yeah, you can still, you know, flub your flips, as I'm doing. But, and obviously I can't do it right now, it is still very, fuck me, there we go. It is still very possible to flip. And I know that I made that look a lot harder than it is. when I'm not sitting at my desk operating at an awkward 90-degree angle, I can flip both of these about 80% of the time successfully. And either way, slow roll, exactly the same level of convenience. There's nothing in your cutting path with this. The thing about this situation that makes me so angry and so frustrated at the Pursuit is $10 US more, baseline. This is the more expensive knife. There's a Pursuit Pro. The custom house version of this with S35VN is less expensive than the Pursuit Pro. Fundamentally, this is just a more expensive knife. That pisses me off. It's pinned construction. The maintenance abilities on this are significantly lower. Yeah, you can take the blade out and do some cleaning or whatever you need on that, but this is fully disassemblable. I have actually disassembled it. I know in my video I had a hard time with that because of the Loctite. Since then I have actually taken it apart and done cleaning, but because of the existence of this knife, especially in the small format, becomes irrelevant. Now, is that it standing on its own merits? No, I'm comparing it to something else in the Buck lineup. But this, I don't understand why it exists. The sheath itself feels fairly cheap. It sits pretty high up on the belt. A lot of Buck's nylon sheaths sit very high up on the belt, and I'm not sure why. It's MOLLE compatible, I'm assuming, is what that is. I don't have any MOLLE gear that I use, but I'm assuming that's MOLLE compatible. It has a drainage hole, which is nice. Fair enough. It holds the knife fine. Like, I didn't have any... I guess the best compliment I can give it is I didn't notice it. Right? Like, it's fine. Baseline, fine. Like I said, 420HC, it's got injection mold plastic and rubberized injection mold plastic. I can't get it. And rubberized injection mold plastic, like I said, the rubberized texture isn't as bad as a lot of rubberized textures are, but in theory, I suppose it adds a little bit more traction. I didn't notice that, but whatever. Some size comparisons up against our Wee Banter and our Civivi Chevalier. As you can see, it is a fair amount bigger than the Banter and a little bit smaller than the Chevalier. And then here it is next to Buck 110 and a Zippo. So again, it is quite a bit smaller than the Buck 110, and I mean, Zippo, obviously it's going to be bigger than a Zippo, but it's a good comparison because everybody has seen a Zippo in their life. In terms of its thickness, it's the same thickness as the Zippo, maybe a little bit, it's a bit slimmer than the Zippo, definitely not by very much. And then next to the Buck 110, obviously it's going to be quite a bit slimmer than the Buck 110 is. Blade stock thickness on, we are sitting comfortably at 115 thousandths, give or take. So, you know, slimmer side, perfectly normal territory. Actually, what's the Spitfire at? Spitfire's got to be pretty much the same. Yeah, Spitfire's the exact same. So, like, again, I don't understand why anybody would buy this knife. I think that's what all of this yammering boils down to. I do not think that this knife has a space. On its own merits, you know, if it's just the knife that you have, it's fine. I find the handle, like, beyond uncomfortable to the point where I will not consider using this. But the blade is good. It handled things well. Heat treat is as expected of Bucks. 420, you know, very, very acceptable. Lanyard hole, if you care about lanyards, is a bit smaller than a lot of lanyard holes, but it'll work for paracord or whatever. Yeah, it's fine. Fine. That's all I have to say about it. It's fine. The Pursuit fixed blades are kind of cool. I actually like those quite a bit. I think I'm probably going to pass on the rest of the folding Pursuit series. We'll see in the future, you know, if I get a good deal on them, I'll definitely start picking them up. But as it stands right now, pinned construction, way too flexible handles, just the general nothingness of it is going to spill its doom for me. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.